welcome to this episode of the Small Bike Stuff podcast. This is the podcast where we explore the ins, the outs, the oddities, the intricacies of small bikes all around the world. And you've got myself, Callum, here in New Zealand on a miserable winter day. We're also joined by...
I'm Dana from Bangkok, BKK.
Yeah, in a much preferable climate at the moment.
Very warm this morning, very sunny. Doing a little riding today probably. Did some riding yesterday.
Enough. Chill out, man. Like, there's no need to rub any of that in. We've got heavy rain warnings at the moment. It's been raining for a solid 12 hours.
Nice.
It's great. I love winter.
You need a sidecar so you can traverse those wet, slippery roads better.
Hold that thought. No, there's an episode on my Small Bike Stuff channel of a Honda Wave with a small sidecar, and it was just cool to see it from a foreigner's aspect. You know, it was owned by an American who seems to have appeared in Thailand and living in Blouin, which is somewhat rural, we'll say. He's been there for less than a year. Got a Honda Wave 125i 2022 full LED model. Yep. And bolted a sidecar to it. So it's cool. It looks
with a roof.
Slow. Yeah, it's got a roof. I like the roof.
So I sent him some messages after you and I chatted, and he referred to the roof as giving the bike lift.
Lift,
yeah. Yes.
That's not what we want. We're aiming for the opposite.
No, yeah, exactly.
We want downforce. Yeah. I've already had some complaints about that episode because I didn't feature his dog.
Yeah.
We just talked about it and didn't show it, but his
IG has got so many dogs. I was like, "Where's the dog's helmet?"
Yeah, I know, right? It does need a helmet. Speaking of small bikes, and the Honda Wave does segue into this.
Waffle.
Here we go. Already, it's starting. This is an episode about the Honda Grom and the Honda MSX 125, as I prefer to call it. But for a global audience, we'll say Grom. Mm-hmm. Now, they are the same bike, and this is a bike that came out in the early 2010s. I've had arguments about this. I may find the picture and put it on screen. Someone tried to tell me in the comments they're not.
It was hilarious. They're like, they're not the same bike.
Yeah. People get really, really like the less you know, the more you're willing to go like head first into an argument, thinking you're right. And this guy's like, no, but one's got 4 gears and one's got 5, so one's a Grom and one's an MSX. I was like, no, you can get a 4 and a 5-speed version of both because it's the same bike. But no, that didn't work. But what we really want to chat about today is like, did this bike kind of create a resurgence? Did it restore the respect of small bikes in our world? What's its place? Because it certainly has, in Western countries especially, a huge following. And that can be boiled down to a few basic reasons, which we'll get to later. But I guess a good place to start is, where did small bikes kind of come into things at all? Where did they get popular? Why are they popular? I mean, bikes is the first, since people discovered that engines existed, they've been trying to slam them into a two-wheeled machine to create a motorcycle. And so, people made steam motorcycles. There was electric motorcycles made like back in the early 1900s. And then Harley Davidson came along, and, their first bike was 400cc, I think, or something similar. And so that's technically quite small. But in the US, I guess, is a good place to start, because I think it's much like New Zealand. There was a long history of people getting motorcycles because they were affordable and cheap, and it was a great way to get around. Yeah. But that's kind of lost its way these days, would you say?
So I think that my perspective looking at the U.S. is that motorcycling has a very passionate base, a very passionate group of people around it, but it's definitely the minority. And like, I look at, of all of my friends back in the States, one rides motorcycles.
That's crazy.
And he lives in Detroit, and he can ride motorcycles, half a year.
Yeah. After that, it's what? Snowing, people don't want to go out. That's kind of like game over. Yeah, okay. In New Zealand, we have a small population in general. We've got, I don't know if you know of the city Sydney, Australia. That's one city in Australia. Yeah. We have the same population in our entire country, so we're rocking a pretty low on the numbers front. But throughout the 30s, the 40s, post-war into the 50s and 60s, small bikes were super popular. We had a lot of British bikes, Velocets,
Mm.
AJS, all these old models that you still see at vintage bike shows these days.
What
The
displacement are
DGR,
you talking about with those?
like sub 300cc, like little two strokes, and a few four strokes. There was the small Hondas that came into the scene throughout the 60s, and but as soon as New Zealand's automotive industry kind of lost itself and disappeared, or it kind of was on a downwards decline throughout the 70s into the 80s, and officially doesn't exist as of 96. I think was the last year we made vehicles here. We have cheap Japanese imports now. And that's something in America that you didn't have. And I'm talking about cars now. We had cheap Japanese import cars. I can go out right now today and spend 1,000 New Zealand dollars and buy a running, driving car that will keep me safe in the weather.
New.
Yes, it will probably. No, not at all.
Okay.
Second hand.
Okay.
But you can get that, and then to get like a small bike, like a Honda Grom, brand new, you're spending 4 to 5 times that.
Well,
so
not here,
yes.
but...
No. But this is the plague of living in a Western country, unfortunately.
Yeah, I see Americans post about the price of the Groms, and I'm blown away. Australians, too. They're like insane.
Yeah. So we pay probably about 4,000 to 5,000. Probably about 4,000 US, 3.5, 4,000 US. I think the price in Thailand is about 2,000 US, brand new for a Grom.
Just over $2,000 for the top of the line MSX Grom or Grom so MSX, whatever.
It doubles. Yeah. MSX 125 Grom.
I see people putting them in posting on American forums for small bikes. These are people paying $6,000 from the dealership.
Yeah, they are. And America has this thing that New Zealand would never fly in New Zealand, and that's when dealerships have a really short or limited run of things or low stock, they ramp up the past the MSRP. MSRP, and they, like, even with cars, people are paying like $100,000 for an $80,000 car, or $7,000 for a $5,000 bike. Why? Do you know why? Why is that a thing? Demand?
Maybe supply and demand. I mean, free market economics, Reaganomics. I don't know.
Yeah. It's something in New Zealand that people just won't buy it. Like, generally, there's not that population here to support that kind of stuff. If you try milk, a supreme profit out of something, generally you get dragged down. New Zealand has a massive case of tall poppy syndrome, where no one really likes people being successful unless it directly helps them. We have a thing where, like, New Zealand celebrities, I remember when the singer Lorde, she became popular and started releasing all this, like EDM music and stuff. People were like, oh, she's not that good. It's like, she's literally selling millions and millions and millions of albums and making millions of dollars. And most New Zealand singers don't get past playing at their local town hall. Like, come on, you got to give some credit where credit's due. But when it comes into the world of bikes, we got the CT125, the Grom, all of those kind of things are available now. But yeah, I mean, you can buy a secondhand 1,000cc motorcycle for the same price as a brand new Honda Grom. So
a lot of CCs.
It's a lot of CCs, and New Zealand roads aren't very big. Like, when they're narrower, they're not long and straight. We don't really have the place for it. So I think there is a good argument here to have small bikes. Thailand's a different story entirely, and because they've got their own vehicle industry there as well.
Yeah.
But that wasn't always the case.
No, and it seems to be shifting again as well. Like, a lot of the manufacturing here seems to be migrating to countries with less economic leverage, and a lot of the luxury brands are starting to assemble here to bring down the cost of the luxury vehicles. So you've seen things like Beamers and Mercedes drastically drop in cost over the last couple of years. Harley assembles bikes here now. So when I first moved here, there were no legal Harleys on the road. They were all gray market, no booked Harleys. And now you see Harley dealerships. I think there's like 2 or 3 in Bangkok. And
and New Zealand sells. We sell tie assembled Harley Davidsons in New Zealand now. If I roll into a Harley dealership, that's the deal Harley made. They're like, well, we can't annoy Americans because they won't buy our product if it's not American. So all US sold Harley Davidsons are made in the USA. And now, for the rest of the world or the global market, they're like, oh, well, I don't have any negative connotations with Thai assembly. Like that's
No,
almost
me
a
either.
benefit for me.
Yeah, I mean, every bike I have has been either made like beginning to end in Thailand or assembled here,
Yeah.
and I think like every CT 125 outside Japan is made in Thailand.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Do they make that's something that like do they actually make the CT 125 in Japan? I don't. I was led to believe no,
Oh,
but we've got some yellow CT 125s on the market here at the moment,
we have
and
yellow.
they you do have yellow, like bright yellow.
I've seen a couple.
Yeah, because I can't. There's no advertising for them. There's no listings for them on like Honda Motorcycle Thailand website. There's
Yeah.
no anything talking about yellow CTs, and we got them. And someone that bought one in Christchurch in New Zealand. I saw their comments on Instagram saying, "Oh no, it's a Japanese assembled one," and I was like, "Oh, I don't believe that."
Yeah,
Um,
I've seen the yellows here, and actually, I saw it at Clubhouse. At the Clubhouse
okay,
booth in Rayon is where I saw
okay,
it at a Gypsy Beach Festival.
yeah, okay. So they do exist.
Yeah.
Oh, solved a mystery. There you go. So if you're watching this, Eric Stuthoff from America, how we've had like 45 messages back and forth about yellow CT 125s. There's your answer. They do exist. The Honda manufacturing in Thailand is a pretty interesting story in general
Yeah.
because I mean Southeast Asia had an interesting time post World War II. There was still a lot of British influence throughout Malaysia, French influence throughout Vietnam, Cambodia,
Cambodia.
Laos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Thailand didn't actually start manufacturing first.
No,
They didn't assemble. No, Malaysia, I'm pretty sure, had the first Honda factory in Southeast Asia.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Someone could fact check me on that, but it was definitely before Thailand. Boon Seal, who is a guy, he started importing Honda into Malaysia and then eventually started doing assembly in the country. 1986, I know for sure, was the first year a Honda Thailand designed model came out, but I think before 1986 they were assembling things already.
I think they were like straight building stuff here for a long time.
Okay, yeah,
Like I don't know the exact dates, but it's funny. Like also like if you look at Southeast Asia, the small bike market's very different in each individual country.
yeah, yeah. It is. It really, really is. Cambodia, you can go to and buy Honda Dream 125s, and if you know Honda's history, I'm not talking about the classic 1960s Dreams with the big tank on top and the chrome everywhere. I'm talking about a little bitty underbone here that
Yeah.
was first produced in Thailand in 1986. That was the first Honda model designed in Thailand by Thai people, and it wasn't made by Honda Japan, and they weren't just assembling a Japanese model. So they made this thing with 100cc 4-speed. It's quite squarish. That went the way of the Dodo in the mid 90s, the late 90s. They kind of replaced by the Wave. Cambodia is still trucking along. If you jump into Cambodia today, you can go to a Honda dealership and buy a Honda Dream 125, and generally they're pulling along those chariot style tuk-tuks,
Yeah.
and they do custom liquid cooling by dropping having a big bottle and having a drip of water going onto the cylinder head.
Every random seconds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot to be said for time manufacturing of small bikes, but yeah, it started with the Honda Dream. The Honda Dream turned into the Honda Wave. Eventually, they started lifting the displacement. First, it was 100. Well, I think the first Dreams were 70cc. Then they went to 90. Then it was 100. Then you can get a 110 Honda Wave, and then you can get a 125 Honda Wave, and that was like a big block when I turned up even
Yeah.
in 2012,
Still is.
13.
Honda Thailand doesn't really mess with the 150s in a lot of their bikes, and now you see like the click jumped up to 160, but that's not a underbone, and
No.
then they have the ADV I think 160, and other than that like the Wave like that's all 125. Everything that it shares that same Clubhouse engine, that mini moto engine that's in
Yeah.
the Grom, but. I find it interesting that in Indonesia and Philippines, you can get 150cc Honda underbones. And even in Indonesia, they've got a 150cc Sonic.
Yeah, they do. They do. And those engines are little rippers. Like I've seen them be taken out and transplanted into Honda Waves before.
Yeah.
And it's you're getting extra gears, you're getting a vertical engine that can just handle more power. The horizontal engines, while you can get big bore kits, they do have their limit. There's no manufacturer out there, the Japanese manufacturer, that's manufacturing a bigger than 125cc air cooled engine. They're just not. And the 125 that was in the Honda Grom has the Honda Wave to thank. If you actually go to the Wikipedia page for Honda Grom, it says it started being produced in 2014, but that's a lie. It was 2012. So don't always trust Wikipedia. What they've written those dates for is that it was announced in 2012 as a 2013 model in Thailand. So it started coming out towards the end of 2012, and it was a 2013 bike. And then 2013 they announced it was coming to the States, and then 2014 they finally released it in the USA. So I remember that bike. I was living in Thailand when that bike had its first release in the USA, and there was a couple of people on YouTube. You may know of Honda Pro Kevin.
Yeah.
He was one of the first dudes that I knew of to get a Honda Grom, and people were making fun of him at the time, like, "Why would you get that, man? It's a little 125. It's going to be useless."
I like your American accent. Why'd you get that, man?
It was super accurate.
Bang bang.
It was complaint after complaint towards him for even daring to get a small bike. Like, how dare you? And look who's laughing now.
Right.
I mean, he's built a whole career out of Hondas and being being a Honda aficionado, and I think that his career has easily been boosted just as much as I can thank my YouTube existence to the small Honda range. So 2012, the Honda Grom comes out. What is the Honda Grom? The Honda Grom's a small mini moto, looks like a kind of a dual sport with not slick tires, but not dirt tires. It's got little 12-inch wheels.
Like something between a naked and a dual sport, sort of like compressed down.
Why did you choose a Honda Grom? Because it wasn't your first choice. You had a Raider 150, which, if you know the Raider, it's basically a drag bike from the dealership.
Yeah.
And that was your first choice. So you got that, and then how long until you regretted your decision and went for the Grom?
So right away, like I bought the Raider strictly based on liking the minimalist look of it, as well as the larger displacement engine. However, it's a very, very stretched out bike, just stock. And I found the riding position incredibly uncomfortable. And it also was way too powerful for the frame. The frame was like very flimsy. And it could go ridiculously fast for a small bike. Like it could easily hit 160, which is insane.
And not to mention you're in Bangkok with a 6-gear manual transmission. And it was like your first time riding a bike daily, I think.
Yeah.
So
well, I lived in Pathum Thani at the time, right, to be fair. Okay. So it wasn't like the congestion of Bangkok. No. But I mean, so there are some wide open roads I could get out and but I definitely did ride into Bangkok a lot. And I have that first, I'm kind of experiencing like a little flashback with my new bike, in that first gear is very, very short. Like I'm giving
almost take off in second.
Yeah. I'm giving my son a riding lesson today, and he's like, "Oh, can I learn on the new bike?" I was like, "Yeah, that's not the right clutch for you to learn on, bud." That's the clutch I learned on. It's not the right spot.
The feel point is very sudden and instant. Yeah.
So I went through a few different bikes after the Raider. But I'd always seen the Grom, and the funny thing is I moved to Thailand before it was ever even announced in America. So I got here and I started seeing these bikes for the first time on Thai streets, and they weren't like super popular when I first got here. You'd see a couple here and there, and like not knowing much of that world when I first got here, like I sort of like assumed it and the Zoomer were like the same family. Right, and I didn't even they just have like a very similar aesthetic, not even the same.
It's aggressive.
Aesthetic. Yeah, that same aesthetic, and I thought like, oh, maybe they're related. It's just a different version of the bike, and sometimes I would even confuse them, like, oh, is that no? That's this one, and it does look a little weird, especially when you take into account like my frame and how big of a human I am. That I ended up really liking this compressed sort of mini moto. And the reason was the ergonomics fit my body so well.
Yeah.
I have very short legs, and so it was very comfortable for me. And I have a long torso, so those riser bars were extremely comfortable. And it just kind of became like the perfect bike for me. Now it's a one person bike, so it's sort of like eliminated like Jib from going anywhere with me on it, unless it was an emergency or a very short trip. But the the bike I started like I just sort of as a daily thing. To me, it just sort of and it's never as popular as a wave, right? If I walked outside right now and I looked at 10 motorbikes, 9 of them are going to be waves. That's just the way it
It's a
is.
shame that none of them will be inside your little porchway there, but that's fine. We'll forgive you for that.
Not yet, not yet. There may be
Yeah,
one in the future.
yeah,
We'll
it's
see.
okay. But you're
Um,
correct. There's so many of them. They're
yeah,
everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Um,
but like I started to see the MSX, and then as I was like looking into that bike, I got mine in 2015, and that's when I really started to see like a large amount of American content come up about that bike. But
mm,
most of it seemed to be people who were like really into like stunt riding, or they were buying it as like a pit bike or just like a practice bike. But here, obviously, a small bike is the bike, right? That's like what you do everything on. And I think right around the same time, maybe I started to watch Ed March's C90 videos, and I think the first video I saw of him was like in Canada or Alaska, maybe, and like that got my juices churning about like what you could do on a bike. And I looked
yeah.
outside the window at my Grom, and I was like, game on, game on.
Yeah, yeah, it's possible. It could do anything. I think that's super interesting to get like a first-hand account of someone who eventually convinced themselves that that was the right bike
Mm,
for them, because there's endless people out there that have had the same similar story.
yeah.
Obviously, they have their own reasons, but it's just become the stalwart of the bike industry. It's funny because you talk about the differences between the clientele, but the owners in America and the owners in places like Thailand. The most common modification to a Honda Grom in America is generally people putting like a new air intake on it,
Mm,
or something like that. In Thailand, it's putting 17-inch wheels on it. And it looks
yeah.
it's like the personification of a bike if it was a human that never did leg day.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
just it looks
So
odd.
skinny, so skinny. It
Yeah,
looks like BMX wheels almost.
yeah. There is a whole scene behind it. I found a
Uh,
Facebook page once, and it's like Honda motorcycles, Tide motorcycles, 17-inch swap, and so
mm,
every model gets that. But yeah, it's 2012. The Honda Wave 125i,
mm,
fuel injected model, as with came out for the first time with the same engine design that is now on the Grom.
yeah,
They released it as a manual version for the Grom as well. I think the next bikes we got in 2018, we got the announcement of the Super Cub 125 and the Monkey 125. And for
yeah.
people that have been into small bikes and known about those bikes uh, recently, they just kind of have existed for the whole time you've been aware of it. But I remember a time before they came out, and it was like, wow, imagine if I remember having a conversation. Imagine if Honda re-released some of their classic models.
Mm,
And then I think someone follows Honda's patents that they file, and they filed a patent for a 125 Monkey, and they
mm,
filed a patent for a 125 Super Cub. And so the rumor mill started going. The first announcements of those models were Japanese announcements that I knew of. And then after the Super Cub and the Monkey came out, there's been other models. There's been the Dex, there's been the
yep.
CT. It feels like Honda Japan's let go and just fully given it to Thailand now. And it's like, hey, it's your model. You guys run with it. Do what you
Mm,
want to do. Because if you roll into a Cub house, uh, you know, every 45 days in Thailand, there'll be a different custom Monkey for sale.
be
It might
different
be
custom
Astro Boy.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, that is. It is. And
But yeah, they
it's
do
really
those
impressive.
brand collabs with the monkey and the monkey is in the Dax.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And they do them with lots of anime cartoons, a lot of
Yeah.
stuff like that. People think that's like a rare thing. To be honest, you could probably still see some of them today. The Manchester United Honda Scoopies,
Hmm.
or like the Chang or the
I remember
Scoopies.
seeing the Man U ones around.
Yeah, so Honda Thailand has never been scared to kind of branch out and do a
Hmm.
little bit different. But I mean, it's a stark difference from the 70s and the 80s where small bikes are being developed in. this is my best description of how I can describe bike development throughout the 80s and the early 90s. It's like every motorcycle manufacturer got their board together. They sat them down in a meeting room. They put a giant bowl of, I might get demonetized for this, cocaine on the table, made everyone have some and be like, all right, go, unlimited money, design bikes. Because some weird shit came out in that period. And that fell away entirely throughout the late 90s and the early 2000s. I can argue today that if you want to go and buy a small bike in New Zealand, and it's new, you're kind of stuck with a Honda. There's not really anything else you can get. It's not like Vespa? That for you, though. Vespa, yeah, but like, do they count? Yeah. Like they do. And I'm offending a whole enthusiast group.
A whole group of people. But it's okay because they ride Vespas, so they should be offended.
Yeah, sorry, Italy and everyone else that likes them.
Go drink your espresso, eat your fucking cannoli, and shut up.
Yeah. There is a place for those Vespas. Like, don't get me wrong, when I worked at motorcycle shops, I rode a lot of the Vespa 300s, like GTS 300. It's a tiny bike. Yeah. You put it next to a Grom, it's not any physically...
Looks smaller even.
Bigger. Yeah, and it's 300cc, twist and go. It's got traction control, which it needs. I remember putting a brand new tire on a 300 Vespa and leaving the bike shop and pinning it, and the whole thing just kind of slid out before the traction control caught it. So yeah, there is a place for them, but they are significantly more expensive. If I want a 300cc Vespa, I'm paying 12 to 15,000 New Zealand dollars. And you could save 5,000 on that and get a brand new CT125. So I mean,
which is a great
it's
bike.
Almost a no-brainer. Yeah,
you don't have that issue with too much power ripping your rear wheel out from under you.
No. Who wants too much power? I mean, I like to say, and someone also said it on one of my groups today, is the Honda CT125 is the perfect adventure bike if you're not in a hurry.
Yeah, that's the beauty of small bikes. So we've talked about this before. It's the beauty of enjoying the ride, right? And like, I have a lot of, whenever I post a bike video of out riding somewhere, doing something, ridiculous with a small bike, someone will inevitably comment, "Oh, you should get a real bike and learn how to ride." And I always laugh a little bit, like, okay, you don't get it. I don't know why you watch the video or why you bother leaving a comment, but to the point too about the Grom, like, before I left the U.S., the only small bikes I really knew were like vintage Vespas. Like, I didn't even know Vespas were still new. Like, you could still get new ones. Like, I just saw the vintage ones, and Honda Ruckus, which is like a 50cc version of the Zoomer. And, I like that was essentially the small bike world in my perspective. Of course, there's more than that available in the U.S., especially now. But back then, like, that's all I knew. And like, it's something you rented a Ruckus when you went to the beach for the weekend type of thing. And like, if I wanted to ride a small bike, to me was like a CB350F, and that's fine. And I would get out and, do whatever. But when I came here, right, it really opened my eyes to the sort of lexicon of small bikes. And then when the videos of the Grom started coming back from America, and I realized, like, the Grom MSX is the same bike, just badged differently. And, you see like so many people getting into it. And then that grew. Now I see Super Cub videos from the US, and I get more Vespa videos. There's even people who have like PCXs or Forzas in the US and love them. Yeah. So that it really, like, I don't think any of that would be possible without the Grom, which none of that would be possible without, the Wave.
And none of that would be possible without Thailand being awesome and deciding to start their own manufacturing industry, which is really linked into the popularity of Honda within Thailand, and not just Honda, but all brands. Thailand, if the vehicle, car, motorbike, truck, doesn't matter what, if it's made within the country, it's significantly cheaper than something that's made outside of the country and imported. That's why, brands like Harley Davidson have gone there, like we mentioned earlier, because there is a subset of people that do have the cash. Thailand's got a big growing middle class. So does Vietnam. This middle class is elevating. It seems like there's 1,000 more families in it every single day. Yeah. And there's people out there that are able to afford vehicles, whether they're loaning them or and ticking them up, or they're buying them outright. there's just this ability to get these bikes. And so I think it's safe to say that without the Grom, yes, there would be no small bike scene within, places like America. These days. It definitely wouldn't be as big as it is now. But in saying that as well, without Thailand's demand and Thailand's use of these bikes, the demand would fall right away. Like, I don't think Honda could survive having like a Honda Grom as a popular model if it only sold in the US like a few thousand units a year. It's the fact that Thailand sees them as a normal bike and they sell 10 to 15,000 a year in Thailand that they can continuously make these models.
I wonder how many, they must sell like 100,000 waves a year easy. I mean, that's hands down the most popular vehicle in Thailand.
Yeah, I've been waiting for an Oprah episode where she comes to Thailand and just gives out
waves.
You get a wave.
You get a wave.
You get a wave. Everybody gets a wave. That's what I want to do. I would love to give away waves to people. It would be my dream, like, philanthropy idea.
Did you see the new Ed March episode?
Yes, I did. Yeah. I do enjoy his humor and his crude animations. They're really good.
I think crude. That's like top. That's like Hollywood level CGI.
I sent him a message and said those top tier rocket animations are great. And he said thanks. I spent ages on them. So he's done really, really well. Look, it's safe to say that the Grom. We can sit here and talk about it for years, but it's definitely the reason for the surge in small bike popularity within the States, and it attracts two different kinds of people. Like, if you join Honda Grom groups on Facebook, there'll either be people that are super into it, modifying it and enjoying it for what it is, or there'll be people saying, how can I get it to go 60 miles an hour no matter what I'm doing, up hills? And they've just bought the wrong bike. Yeah. So I think it's not the bike for everyone. There are plenty of people out there that have bought a Honda Grom and been like, what am I doing? And sell it.
Yeah.
Some people will only ride it if they've got groups of friends that will ride them. But I think it's enabled the people that would have otherwise not known they liked small bikes to kind of be exposed to it.
Yeah, for sure.
And not just small bikes. It's enabled a whole generation of people to get into motorcycling and go up and elevate themselves into different brands. So I think a lot of adventure, like young guys that are into riding long distance and things like that, it'd be funny to it'd be interesting to go and ask most motorcycle YouTubers what their Grom story is, because if they didn't have one, are they even really motorcycle YouTubers?
I think part of it is too, like you said, it's enabled so many people to get into motorcycling because it is so much more accessible as and less intimidating as a first bike, something to jump on and learn how to shift, right, how to corner. Like, I learned how to knee drag on a MSX. I went to a course and that's the bike they had. And, have I ever done it again? No. Right. But like in 2 days, I was dragging knee with this Grom, going around cones in a parking lot out in Pathumtani. So, it's a bike that makes so many skills of like accessible and easier to learn. And I learned so much. I've taken a few riding courses and, learning figure eights, like really tight, circles and standing circles and all this stuff on the Grom that would probably be a little more challenging on, say, like a CRF. So it really has made riding accessible. And also the challenge of, like you said, there are people who don't get it. Like, how can I make this go 60 no matter what I'm doing? Wrong bike completely. But for the people who are like, wow, there's a big challenge that's enjoyable in riding this bike in certain situations, they get it. And I mean, it's something, part of the challenge is the bike you bring with you, right? If you rode an Africa Twin everywhere and you could just ride over whatever, yes, you have to be very skilled to ride that bike, but it's far less challenging than, say, trying to do the same thing on a CT125 or Grom or some crazy people who ride waves around dirt roads in New Zealand.
They don't exist. That's fake news. The other thing that I think lends itself hand in hand with the Grom's popularity is the aftermarket support for the product.
Yeah.
In its early days, it was difficult to get. Well, that was the thing that always flabbergasted me, because it took a good 18 months to 2 years for American companies to have the product base that you could access here in Thailand. I remember specifically living in Thailand and people being like, oh, I want to get this big bore kit, or I want to get this intake, or I want to get this ECU aftermarket but I don't know where to get one. And I'm like, what do you mean? There's 82 shops in Bangkok that sell them.
You just go to the corner and you'll find a shop.
Now you've got websites like Yumanashi, MMNTBX or something is another one. There's all these different Thai brands that are retailing parts overseas. And, back in the day, you used to have to go use, what is it, the Ruckus Shop? The Ruck Shop was one of the places that used to sell all the parts. Steady Garage is another place that does a lot of Grom parts. And that was it. That was the only places you could get. But now, with the way shipping works these days and the kind of cost of everything coming down or going back to what it was, especially after COVID and we had that horrible whole inaccessibility, things have dropped. I can buy a Honda Grom today. I can jump online tonight. I can buy a whole bunch of parts for it from multiple countries. They will all be here within a week. And I can learn how to be a mechanic in my own backyard or my own shed or my own house or my own driveway. And I generally won't do anything that'll kill myself. Yeah. Like, what better way to learn? It's not intimidating, I guess, is the best way to say it.
I'll say that I was kind of spoiled with I've had my Grom since 2015, and I was kind of spoiled by the immediate access to a large catalog of aftermarket products and parts when I was trying to source things for my new bike, which is not as popular, and especially here in Thailand, not as popular. And I've had to source from multiple countries to get the parts I need.
To do, just to kind of give context to what it's like to get parts in New Zealand as well. When I bought my Honda Wave in 2019, 100cc Wave in Malaysia, rode it to Bangkok, took the engine out, sent the engine home, wanted to do a big bore kit, got a big bore kit. It did fit, but technically it was a little bit the wrong size. Like I had to deck the cylinder about 1 or 2 mil lower because the cylinder wasn't coming up all the way. I ended up having to get like a jack-up crankshaft, so a 2 mil longer crankshaft. I had to completely rip the engine apart. I had to get the clutch from one. I had parts from the Philippines, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia. I had like 5 or 6 different countries where all my parts had come from. And that was all stuff that if I went to one shop in Bangkok, I would have been able to get.
Yeah.
So it was an extreme frustration. But yeah.
And someone would have seen that issue with that kit before and known the fix.
Yeah, they would have. But no, I just had to, it took me 6 months to build an engine because they kept coming across stumbling blocks.
And then you swapped it out eventually, right?
Yeah. And I sold it to a guy who doesn't even live in New Zealand now, so it's sitting in his lockup somewhere here in New Zealand, but that's fine.
Call him up and offer him 50% on it.
Yeah, I know, right? I gave him a good deal. I'll let him hold on to it. He had more ambition than I did with that engine. Yeah. It was just easier. I had a few clutch issues and stuff like that, and it was getting annoying having to, there's something to be said for a bike. You can go out, turn the key, and it works. Yeah. If you're having to fix it every single ride, it's fun for a while, but it's, yeah.
You start to ride it less and less.
You do. That's why when I have a bike and I want to modify it, I make sure whatever I'm doing won't make it not run for a long time, because then you just lose interest. So, yeah. Thanks, Groms, for existing.
Now you can get the Grom. You can get the Grom new in New Zealand.
Still, yeah. So you can get the 5-speed Grom now. Nice. The long block engine or whatever they like to call it.
Long stroke.
Slightly. Yeah. I'm sure all that power is noticeable and makes a difference, right? Right.
Well, it's just where the band is, right? It's not any more power.
No, exactly. And people are like, oh, it's 5 gears, it'll go way faster. No. It's just got more usability in the lower range. So instead of having a big gap from second to third, there's actually like a reasonable gap between gears now. Yeah,
it doesn't go faster. It just gives you more nuance within the gear ranges. Yeah, that's
absolutely.
The way to look at it.
It's like people thinking that when they push sport in their car, that it's giving them more power. But it's not. It's just like changing the way the fuel injection's working.
No, it's the computer. It's you letting the computer know I'm about to drive like an untrained idiot. Please correct for my mistakes more aggressively.
Hey, don't call me out like that. How did you know?
That's what that button's there for.
Yeah, I think that's actually what it's labeled as too. Idiot button, especially in my vehicles. Look, it's safe to say the legacy of the Honda Wave lent into the legacy of the Honda Grom.
Yeah, for sure.
Honda Wave came from the Honda Dream. There's this big, steady... And the Honda Dream came from the Honda Super Cub.
Yeah.
So it all goes all the way back to the beginning. It's safe to say that Soichiro Honda, back in 1950, whenever it was, and he got the inspiration to design that model. Yeah, he did the world a favor because Honda really has helped us pave a way forward. Is there anything else you want to say about this wonderful Grom?
No, I'm happy. I'm so happy that I've had the opportunity to own one for so long and do so much with it, but also that it really has created a resurgence in small bikes in the U.S. I mean, that's what this whole topic was about. Really, it's these bikes exist everywhere else as a means of transportation, and for people in a place where bikes are generally not the option to embrace that part of the culture, I'm just super happy.
Yeah, so am I. So am I. It's definitely a better world with the Honda Grom in it.
Absolutely.
People don't know what it was like when the only thing that you could get was the Kawasaki KSR 110. That was the mini bike. It looked like a Grom.
Yeah.
It had a 110, but the Grom didn't exist, so it didn't look like a Grom. It looked like itself. The Grom looked like that. But if you Google KSR 110, that was it. I remember when I saw a girl riding one in Thailand, like on my first couple of weeks there, and I was like, wow, there's a girl on a motorbike. And then I realized that was really normal.
They all are.
Yeah.
Cowie does a 135 now.
Yes. Yeah, they do. And then there's like TNT, the Benelli TNT 135, which has gone back to a 125 now.
Has it?
For some reason. Apparently.
I see those on the road every now and again.
They're okay. I did a comparison video. It's one of my more popular videos in which I think I did a terrible job, but it's got a lot of views. So thanks everyone for that.
It's not Singaporeans.
No, getting angry at me. We've been there. Let's not go back to it. I think we'll cut it here and be sure to tune in next time because we are hopefully in the next couple of episodes going to be able to rein in someone who rode around the world on a Honda Grom. I'm trying my best to get him to
make it happen.
He's Swedish, so every time we chat, it takes him a while to warm up, but once he warms up, there are charms aplenty. So
the behind the scenes will be 2 hours of small talk, and then we'll record for 20 minutes.
Yeah, that'll be it. Hopefully, look. Next episode, we're going to be talking about small bike adventure riding, something we've both done in completely different capacities. So I'm really excited to discuss that more, and we'll probably chat more about the people who have done some of the best small bike adventures in the world as well. So stay tuned. Subscribe if you like this. Be sure to check out Dana's channel, Idea Studio BKK, where he explores lots of stuff to do with lots of things, mainly Thailand. And there are some motorcycle adventures there. Yeah? Is that good enough for you?
I love it.
Thanks, man. All right, good. All right. I've sold Dana's channel. You're already watching this on Small Bike Stuff, so I don't need to plug me. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.